Welcome to Toffee TV. It is the final word. Everton 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Jack and myself are going to look back on this, well, controversial. Turned out to be a massively controversial game. Not because of anything we've done, for once. But it's turned out to be a massively controversial game, Jack.
Yeah, it has, and it feels weird for once that, we're not the ones who are... I mean, we are to a degree at the centre of controversy because, we're being claimed to be the beneficiaries of what's being potentially alleged as match fixing. But for once...
Allegedly.
Yeah. But for once, it's not our fault.
Yeah.
Which it's a weird position to be in because it's more just sort of sit back and watch the flames go up rather than, be the one either lighting up or trying to put out the fire.
Well, like that girl on the GIF, who's standing in front of the fire just smiling. We're a little bit like that. Normally we're not used to being in this position.
But I do feel a little bit left out almost. It's like, that Simpsons clip, like, if anyone's going to ruin the family holiday, it's me or maybe the boy. Like, we're normally Homer in this scenario, and now it's someone else. I don't really know what to do. I don't know whether we should just steer clear of it and let it play out or get amongst it.
I just don't think we should... I mean, we'll talk about the penalty incidents, of course we will, because, they're part of the game and everything, but it's not our fight. For once, it's not our fight. We can just sit back going, we got the 3 points. It is what it is. I understand the situation. We've been in it. But we'll come on to the penalty situation anyway. Obviously, a huge game. Luton done their side of things on Saturday. And it was that made the game massively important that Everton could get the 3 points. Obviously, the team was announced. Were you surprised by how we lined up? Obviously, Ashley Young going into right back. Andre Gomez and Adissa Ganagay coming into midfield for Ghana Onan, who obviously both went off at half-time on Monday night. And obviously, the manager is massively... You can see he's put a lot of blame on those two players. Jack Harrison's coming on the right because obviously no Seamus Coleman, no Nathan Patterson, so obviously he's had to retool the right-hand side. So, and obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin coming up. Were you surprised by the centre midfield situation? Because he has in a way by what he's done there, Sean Dyche. He
dug them out.
He's put those two. He mentioned them on Monday night for that performance, and he's doubled down on that, hasn't he?
Yeah, in terms of being surprised, yes and no. I didn't think Onana would feature because we know Dyche isn't maybe his biggest fan anyway. And I know he criticised both him and James Garner and he took them both off at half-time, but I just thought with the makeup of our midfield, Andre Gomez isn't really his type of midfielder. He's done all right this year under Dyche when he's featured, but he's not a Dyche midfielder. Look at James Garner, who's someone the manager likes, and I don't think Onana will start, but maybe with Garner, he'll just let bygones be bygones and he'll just put him in and just hope he performs this week. But at the same time, it'd be hard to say you were surprised after they both get hooked at half-time against Chelsea. The manager, we had something to say about the both of them in the press conference. And, as far as managers criticising their own players after the game, that's normally about as far as it can go. So, he did criticise them. He did say, look, I know the young lads, but come on, they've got to be doing better, getting more stuff in. But I didn't have a personal problem with the team sheet as well, because the midfield performance was so poor against Chelsea. I do think a big part of that was our tactics, not just the individual performances. But, when you perform that bad in an area of the pitch and you get beat 6-0, I don't think you can really raise your eyebrows too much at any changes that are made, because there was no one who played in that game who had their position for the next game against Forest set in stone. It's only in terms of, okay, who are most reliable bets, who's performed the most this season, and, who is the drop-off even worse for if we take them out.
Yeah, it was... I was just looking at the team sheet there, and the average age, 29.3. It was 28 against Chelsea, so we somehow managed to get us even older for this game. And he loves that, though. He loves the experience. That's what he likes. We know that. As a manager, he likes the experience, and he managed to get more experience into the team. And listen, that's fine. He's a manager who doesn't... He's obviously looks at Onana, looks at James Garner and thinks that they're not savvy enough in the games. Don't get me wrong, against Chelsea, I thought the tactics were diabolical and did lead us to the position we were at half time for those players to be get hooked. 2 deep line midfielders being asked to press and advance. I don't know what you expect, but he made the changes, and fair enough. That's what you do as a manager. You react to the situation. I thought we started pretty poorly against Forest. I thought we allowed them to have a little bit too much of the ball early on. Obviously, listen, before the game, it seemed absolutely brilliant scenes. Gladys Street looked amazing. The mosaic at the park end looked amazing.
Brilliant.
The 1878's done a fantastic job there. So fans were doing their side. They understood how important the game it was and how important a win could be to get, try and get this situation sorted quicker rather than, than letting it drag again. And once the game settled, I think we got a little foothold in it, didn't we? And, Forest had a little bit of the ball. They were lively, but they haven't really hurt us early on. We took over, and for the most part, we got a little bit of control. And I think what we do, I've said this before, we did well. I mean, whether people like what we do, that's a different matter. But I think what we do, we did well. And I think that's all really you can ask for, I think, from this team, is that if they're going to do something, just do it well.
Yeah, it's cobbled together, isn't it, that team, especially the one we've seen at the weekends. But once we did get a little bit of control in the game, I do think a lot of that did actually come from the midfield, which is the area where changes were made. But a player who did play against Chelsea and played at the weekend, and I thought actually did relatively well, was Toffee. And I thought his role in the game at the weekend was slightly more reduced from his normal attacking role. And I think it's not really a coincidence that we're seeing him succeed, playing a little bit deeper at times as well. Obviously, he had involvement for the second goal, which we'll get into. But just playing a little bit deeper in the pitch, I don't think that's necessarily his long-term position. But I think at times this season there have been occasions where we've needed to adjust to more of a 3-man midfield, where we've needed that presence in the middle. Yeah. And we've neglected bringing Toffee back into that group, and we've left him playing in almost a 4-4-2 at times, just being stationary. And he's been very successful in that role at points under Dyche's management. But it's a hybrid role. It's a role made up specifically for Toffee. And as good as he can be, he's a limited footballer. And I think maybe at times he's gone a bit stagnant in that role. He can have success, he can get goals, and we've seen got an assist. But I think at times he's just been a little bit stuck in the mud in that role. And I think he's a player that you do need to freshen up his game and his role every couple of months because he does have his limit, and sometimes you need to give him something new to do so he doesn't become not complacent in terms of his attitude. I don't think he's lazy, but I think he does just become stagnant in terms of his style of play at times if he's left doing one thing for too long over the course of a season.
No, I agree. I totally agree. I think that position he's been playing in, he's been getting, he's just not getting into games, and the game's been passing him by. And I think him playing slightly deeper and Andre Gomez playing means Andre Gomez is going to get on the ball and also can feel like he can have less defensive responsibility. Even though Gomez did find himself in deeper areas just taking the ball off people, I think it does leave him a little bit less to do. The last thing you want is Andre Gomez in a deeper role and having the opposition know that if they just get past him, there's nothing between them and
the ball around him.
There's nothing between him and the defence. So I think that's really important. And Toffee went a little bit deeper, and certainly when you're playing counter-attacking football, I think that's important because he can drive you then. He can pick up the ball deeper and drive you forward. So that was noticeable. It was also noticeable how sort of central Dwight McNeil was coming at times as well. We didn't really have anyone on the left-hand side. Andre Gomez was actually going out there and occupying it at times, that extra man, so that McPartland did have that foil. So we were quite narrow, certainly on the left. Obviously, you got Harrison then as your natural width on the right. And it did change. It just changed, as I said, it changed the way we attacked them a little bit. We're not, as I said, we still went long at times. I don't think we went long a little bit less. I think Don might have only had something like 3 chances in the air or something like that. But we just tried to pick up the possession in midfield, which we did well. It's just the final third again. We just pass it in side to side like we're playing rugby. And unless we can find that little breakthrough, it is really difficult. And I think Forest actually naturally dropped off and were like, well, come and break us down. And I think that's what led to the first goal, was them saying, we don't care about it, Isagana guy having the ball. You're fine. You're fine there. You can do what you want with it there. We're not bothered because we know you're going to go wide and we know you're going to put a ball in the box. And we've got no problem with that. And I think him coming in, advancing with the ball, he did it a few times. He got the shot off. It slowly just goes past the goalkeeper. It's a great strike. I mean, if he meant it, it's a fantastic strike. He put it right in the corner. But I think it took someone like Garner going, if I just drive through here, I'll get a bit of joy, because they just, as I said, they weren't really that worried.
No, they weren't, but I do think the midfield setup that we approached this game with maybe gave Garner the licence to do that. But I know he takes his shots from outside the box all the time, but the idea of driving and coming across and putting it right across the keeper, I think the opportunity to do that and set himself up so well comes from the fact we had a slightly different midfield setup. And, we have McNeil coming central quite a lot, almost being a bit of a makeshift 10. Maybe occupying that Decore role a little bit.
Well, actually, him and Dwight, if you look at the average positions of the team, Garner's sitting as the 6. Decore and Dwight McNeil are operating as 8s. And Gomez is almost operating as a 10. And I know that he's almost in a 3. Gomez, in the average positions, is playing in a position you'd expect Dwight McNeil to be in. It's a 3-pronged attack, and it is quite narrow. Dom, Harrison and Gomez, and Dwight McNeil's filling in the role you actually expect Gomez to be playing in.
But what it gives us, although Gomez is operating in that space more often than the others, you don't know if he's always going to be the one to make the run to receive the ball. But you've got Decore still doing it on occasion. You've got McNeil showing for the ball as well. And just that little extra bit of fluidity in midfield is more than we've had, and that makes us slightly less predictable than we've been.
Yeah.
We've also sacrificed width on the left-hand side, which, but it's not necessarily a bad thing when you look at how little comes from our wide positions in a normal game anyway. We're so slow at getting the ball off the pitch that quite often the flanks are neglected for us anyway, because we don't push our full-backs up for overlaps either. Quite often when we send the ball out wide, that's what kills our move, because we're so slow with it. Overall, you should be looking at that and, adjusting, going, okay, how do we get more out of our wide positions? But in the short term, while you're not getting anything out of your wide positions, you look at, where can we move these players to get more out of them on the pitch? For Dwight McNeil, it's pushing them inside a bit more, and it's letting, if anyone's going to go up the left, it'll be Michalenko. But in the meantime, you've got Gomez operating across that space, and you've got McNeil as a body in the middle.
You do wonder, don't you, whether if Everton did have the points, and we will be safe now, you do wonder whether the manager would let the reins off Michalenko a little bit, because there is a lot of space out there. Someone said to me before, it was on the comments of another video, and he said, McNeil's basically acting like Pina did. I mean, maybe you didn't watch Pina, but he said he's taking up spaces off the left, coming inside. And I understand the sentiment, but the difference is Pina
had skill.
He had Baines, but he had Baines. More importantly, he had Baines. He had a lot more talent than Dwight McNeil, but he had Baines just getting up and down that left-hand side all the time. And you do wonder whether if we were safe or circumstances slightly different, if the manager would say to Michalenko, the whole thing's your left-hand side. We will pull people round to get you more and more space. Because I thought he had loads of space yesterday. I just don't think the tactic is to get it to him in areas. I don't think, obviously, he's not confident whipping them in, first time, second time, whatever. And also, Dwight McNeil doesn't have a tendency to come back onto that side either, the way you would expect someone who does drift inside him. You're going to compare him to Pina. Pina was very good at drifting inside, but he'd always come back and give Baines that 1-2. I mean, the fact that I'm even comparing those players is just mad. But if we're talking about that, it's like Michalenko's had all that side, and you just think, I wonder if that would work in the future. Just Dwight McNeil coming inside, getting into good areas, and just creating that space for them to exploit. might need another better left back to do that. And I know it's something like Villa do all the time, is to they do overloads on the right hand side to basically create space on the left hand side, so that everyone's like, what's going on over there? Forget about the left hand side. And it's something we've done in the past, and in a way we are doing that, but we're just not giving the ball back to Mykolenko at the right time. So I wonder if that's something that can evolve. But as I said, from you look at the average positions, it does look like there's McNeil's becoming more and more and more on the inside. I just don't think we get anything out of it because of Mykolenko. I don't think not willing. Willing's not the right word, because he's doing what he's being asked to do, but maybe it's something we can go forward with.
You've got the framework of the approach. Yeah, I just think maybe you're lacking the specific players to really attack that. First and foremost, a left back who's more comfortable going forward. But then I think, a midfield and defensive setup that covers that. A lot of top teams push their fullbacks up to basically be wingers.
Yeah, but that's what they all do now.
70% of the game, but it's who they've got covering them. I don't know if our midfield and defence setup really accommodates that. I think you'd have to maybe change a couple of players and. Maybe you want a winger who's a bit more direct in the space they operate. Maybe they're coming inside and really attacking that final third rather than filling a midfield role. But at the moment, we've got the framework of it.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at our average positions, our back four are what you'd expect our back four to look like. They are. It is a semicircle that's within our half. And that's why we get clean sheets. You can't moan about that, because that's what literally this team is built on, is that back four, and that back four being a solid unit and having someone sitting in front of it. That's what it's all based on. When you get more options, and I don't know whether it needs a more progressive coach or whatever, but
you can be more advanced.
You'd expect your fullbacks to be way higher. And obviously then one of your midfield or two of your midfielders being a little bit deeper. That's stuff for the future when you're in a better position. That's what better teams would do. We're not built on that because we don't score goals. But then people might say, well, you don't score goals because your fullbacks are not far enough ahead. And then your wide men could both come in and tuck in, and actually then you have a front three. You've got to be more progressive to score goals, but that's not what our manager trades on. Obviously he trades on being strong at the back and getting that one goal that'll see you through.
Yeah, and we did get that goal eventually to give us the lead, didn't we? And, I've been critical of the manager the last few weeks, and, I think rightfully so, but I do think the slight adjustments made to the tactical setup in this game in terms of how the midfield works and interchanges with each other, it's nothing revolutionary. It's nothing we haven't all been calling for, but I do think it gave us a little bit more of a spark than we've had from our central areas in recent games. Yeah, there was a good energy. I think I said, talk about it quite often. Idrissa Gana Gueye is such an important player for Everton, and we'll just look at his stats here on the screen. 1 goal, 89% pass accuracy, key passes 1, 4 tackles, duels 1. 6 out of 8, and you can see his heat map there. He's everywhere, bar really in their box, which doesn't have to be because he scores from outside the box. Idrissa Gana Gueye is a player that he has a narrative that follows him, doesn't he? Not by everyone. I mean, I'm not going to go overboard and say by everyone, but a lot of people question them early on in the season. We don't need them. It's like you get that shiny new thing, get the new one into the team, get James Garner into the team, and it's like you're trying to find ways. I think even the manager at times fell for that or seemed to fall for that, even though they shouldn't. Idrissa Gana Gueye is just so much better player than the other centre midfielders we've got. He's got all the experience, he's got all that nous, been at Everton before, understands the culture, knows what it requires, and when he plays for Senegal, or even when he played for Everton his first spell, there's so much more of a player than actually is being shown at Everton. That's why Paris Saint-Germain came in for him, because you could see there was more than a player, and sometimes you see that when he plays for Senegal, how more advanced, how he carries the ball. He's never been allowed to do that at Everton, but he plays his role. I remember literally the first 6 months of when he was at Everton, when he first signed, and I was just like, what a player, what a find this is. He went under the radar at Villa. And he's so integral. He should be in the team every week if he can be, of course, injuries and whatever else.
And he's just, we have to make sure now he plays every game. And honest to God, obviously there was rumours last week that Everton might have to let him go. Obviously, if Everton can find any way to keep this player, just in the situation we're in, and honestly, maybe they've sat down and maybe there isn't any way. But if there is a way to keep him at Everton Football Club next season, Everton, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here saying we've got to give him 90 grand a week and all that kind of thing. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, if there is an amount of money we can offer him, then offer him it and see what he says. Maybe that conversation's being already had, maybe. But he's so important. And we're going into a summer where we could be losing Andre Gomez, who's currently starting games, Onana, who's played plenty this season. You know, there's two straight away. If he was to be the third, that leaves you James Garner, basically, as your midfield. And the core, of course. That's a rebuild. And I don't know if Everton are in a position to be doing a rebuild right now. I'd be looking for Idrissa Gana Gueye for another year at least, the last year at Goodison. Win him over with the sentiment, or give him at least one with an option of a second, and say, last year at Goodison, first year at the new stadium. He gives so much. He's so experienced that for me, we have to find a way to keep him.
We're going into a position next year where we're going to be dealing with a lot of the same issues we've dealt with this year, regardless of what league we're in, and we're going to need some surefire bets, some safe bets in our team, and Gana Gueye's one of them. And I know there's the financial side of it. He's on big wages, and you need to work out a solution there, but we need to work out what the cost of replacing him and potentially the two other midfielders will be, and are we going to basically spend the same amount of money or a very similar amount to get a worse player in? So it's very easy to do. And he's so important, and showing his stats there, the most impressive thing to me was actually his heat map and how much he was about the pitch. He wasn't staying anywhere for long. But he's a firefighter. He's so combative in that midfield. And I think maybe sometimes because he's a more defensive-minded midfielder, he's being miscast as maybe a bit more of a six. Yeah. But really, he's best in that role where he can get all around the pitch. And he had 8 duels and won 6 of them, I think it said on the stats. And he's just all over the pitch, just doing little bodies away. He won't always come up with goals like he did yesterday, but he'll always be there, just contributing all over the pitch, just getting 9 out of 10 scenarios right, doing the right thing.
What he's brilliant at is he's brilliant at like following players or following the play. And just as a big moment looks like it's opening up for the opposition, he just gets a foot in.
Key moments.
He just gets a foot in and make sure that the ball gets cleared, or make sure you draw. Almost as a fan, you're sitting in, you pull your breath in because you think something's big happening, and he'll just nick in and get a touch and get it away. And he's got a brilliant knack of not giving loads of fouls away and not being booked. And even when he does get booked, the amount of games that Idrissa Gana Gueye's been booked, say in the first 20 minutes, and then you're like, might have to get this fella off, and then he somehow gets through the rest of the game and he's faultless. You see some players who give a booking away, and then every time they go near anyone, the old hands up. He's brilliant at it, and I honestly, Everton can't afford to let this lad. I mean, people might go, can't afford to keep him, mate. But I don't think we can afford to let him go. You're letting all that experience leave the club. If he played 25 games next season, could be absolutely key for us, because the experience he brings, obviously you have a lot of foreign players as well who look up to him, and you always see him laughing and smiling and joking with a lot of players who come in, and he might be that, you might have players like Dan Juma, hasn't played loads this season, but they all gravitate to him, and he's always that player that you look at it, and he just seems like a really good person to have at your football club. And maybe foreign players don't always gravitate to, your homegrown leaders. Maybe they do at times.
People with different cultures might look to people of similar culture, won't they? And I think it is important to have that representation in your dressing room, just so you've got, different leaders of different types. So, everyone who's at your club has someone to go to and someone to make them feel welcome and part of the group. But you're absolutely right. He's just a pro, isn't he, in regards to the majority of what he does?
Yeah, he's brilliant. I can't say enough about him. Honestly, we gave us the lead. We got in at half time, but obviously we'd had a couple of scares. Obviously, Chris Wood at the back post was a huge moment in the game. Not that far from half time. It's an absolutely brilliant save. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go overboard. It's a save I'd expect Jordan Pickford to make, because these are the kind of saves he makes. But between him and then Tarkowski with a block as well, it was just that moment where sometimes we'd had a little bit of I think we had Branthwaite, a ball come in and Branthwaite hadn't dealt with the header. And he'd let Chris Wood just get there before him. And Chris Wood had one of those games that you expect Chris Wood to have, leaning into people, forcing them to head the ball the wrong way. Again, I always look at it and think that's exactly what almost you want Branthwaite to be up against, to lean off different players.
But it was proper number 9 play, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was proper like, I've been round the block and I'm a number 9, I'm going to make it hard for you. And he'd give both of them a little bit of a time, We hadn't dealt with it. It come to the far post. The shot was a bouncer. It bounced back to the other side, and he's dealt with it brilliantly, and we got it away. It was just really in the first half, that was the only real scare as such. Like, the only real save that Pickford had to make. He'd had one where he'd come in and he'd spilt it and grabbed it just before, and he'd had one where a poor kick away. But it was a really big moment that they can be the real difference in games like this is when you give a cheap goal away, a goal that shouldn't have, you didn't see coming or the opposition hadn't earned. Sometimes they can have a massive effect on not just the players, but the crowd, I find. Yeah,
and you're right in saying it's a save he should be making, but I think it's a save he should be making once he gets himself in position into one-on-one with Wood. But he actually does really well getting himself across the goal because it switches quick, and I think his movement's really spot on. So he knows where it's going, he knows where he needs to be. Then he makes the save. I know it's at point blank, but he has to get his hands up for it. He reacts well. And Tarkowski as well, I think, hasn't necessarily had the credit for that he deserves because it's all been on Pickford. And, he had a really poor performance the other week, Tarkowski, but, he's one of the characters, one of the leaders you look to and say, okay, set the standards that we're going to turn this round. And I think he did it the weekend as well, because you've seen the way he applies himself and, getting in there for the rebound as well. Yeah. No standing and waiting, no ball watching, just getting amongst it.
Just looking there, we first half with the next year of 0.13. So maybe it does pay back to their 0.45, 42% possessions, they're 58% possession. And they did have a lot of the ball. We do allow teams to have a lot of the ball. There's no issue with that. I'm never really bothered. The possession never really bothers me because you allow them to have the ball and then you try and take it off them, essentially. And as I said, they didn't have much. We didn't have loads, couple of set pieces that I thought we should have done maybe a little bit better from, but not too much. We got to half-time 1-0 up, and I think everyone felt quite calm about it. But I'll obviously talk about the most controversial part of it now, because obviously a couple of incidents were in the first half, and one was into the second half, one we 1-0 up. But I came out the ground, and obviously I'd done me reaction outside the ground, and I actually thought Ashley Young had an okay game. Don't get me wrong, nothing spectacular, and he's not someone I'd want to be me right back as such, but needs must, and the manager thought the way we set up was it needed his experience rather than maybe Ben Godfrey against a tricky winger. Maybe thought the experience of Ashley Young. So I'm looking at it from a point of view of I'm not seeing the incidents. The first one just come and went. Never really thought more of it. The handball, I honestly thought his arm was closer to his side. And the third one, when I looked at it in real time, I was like, oh, and then you see the ref doing that and you think, oh, he must have won the ball. And if he must have won the ball, then it's a great tackle. Therefore, that adds to the narrative that he's had a decent game.
Well, that's in the ground. You don't have the...
We're not going to show replays, are you?
Yeah.
Not going to show replays of that. So obviously that's my narrative coming out, and I've looked at the comments and how can you say he's had a good game and this and that? Like, I'm in the game, mate. I don't have the benefit of all that. And as I said, the first one, the crowd were screaming at Reina to get up for being a cheat. The second one, it's a bit like, oh yeah, maybe. And as I said, the third one, if you're seeing the ref doing that, he's won the board, and you're thinking that's a great tackle. As I said, it all plays its part. We come out after the game, and obviously the narrative is all because in fact, I was walking through Stanley Park going back to the car, and there's like 4 Forest fans standing there, And have you seen this? You know, the talking to each other. They've put a statement out, blah blah blah. And I was thinking, what do you put a statement out for? There's nothing wrong with them. And it's only when you get home and you watch the telly and you see how it's unravelled and what's actually being said and all the controversy that it's suddenly blown up. And of course, Ashley Young, of course, today has made light of it, Crimea River and all this kind of thing. But
he did in his interview as well.
Yeah, he was like, no, give him. But what was your take on all three incidents?
First one, the Reina one, I didn't think was a pen. I think he went down very softly. I think it was more exaggeration from Reina than it was a foul. The handball one, I think I maybe differ from you here a little bit, because I do think that probably should have been given within the rules. I don't agree with the handball rules. I think the idea of a natural position ignores a lot of context within the game in regards to how people move. But if it's the rule and that's the standard and you do see them given, what can you do until the rules change? And the Hudson and Doy one as well, I do think he was a bit lucky to get away with.
Yeah. I thought the first one was never a penalty.
The Reina one.
I just think that I just don't see how that little contact could bring someone down. And as it's been mentioned loads of times, once you plant your foot and go over, it looks like a dive. You have to fall over before your foot's planted. Otherwise, you're not falling over. The handball, as I said, when it was in this ground, I thought his arm was closer. And so I've seen it, when I've seen it the first time, I'm like, it's a definite penalty. It's an absolute penalty. It's his arm. But the more I've thought about it, the more I just think, his arm's not in an unnatural position. It's not like he's standing still and the ball's come across and it's hit him. He's on the move. And I think when you're on the move and you're not maybe in control of your arms, or your arm is coming across in a natural way, because it is natural, because he's not, as I said, it's not Michael Keane calling the bus at Anfield. And I think that's what's changed my mind slightly, is watching her a couple of times and thinking, because he's moved his body. And I just think it's a 50-50, isn't it? It's a 50-50. I don't think we should I think there's a lot of this when more you watch football, more you see decisions, the more you convince yourself that because you saw the last one and that was handball, that this one has to be handball itself, has to be handball. So I'm 50-50 on that. I can see your argument, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and go, definitely not. It's a 50-50, and it all comes down to, unfortunately, interpretation.
When the people who are in charge of interpreting things aren't always great at that, which is where the issues come from. Yeah. And I do agree with you. I don't think, it is really an unnatural position if you've played the game yourself, or just, ever really ran before and for whatever reason, at a turn, your arms do move with you. But I just think at the end of the day, it's away from the frame of his body and it stops the ball from, going towards the box. So it's one of that. I think I'd be frustrated if we didn't get that. I wouldn't think it was, a purposeful effort by a fan of another club to wrong us, but I'd understand why you'd want that penalty. Yeah,
as I said, I think it's a 50-50. The third one is a penalty. Watching it in the ground, when it first happened, I was like, well, he's on the wrong side. He's gone down. Why would you go down when you're one-on-one with the goalkeeper? I mean, the ball by Gibbs-White is spectacular. It's a fantastic. Forest weren't great. And if people will come in for Gibbs-White soon, I imagine, and they'll probably have to sell with everything that's gone on. It's a fantastic ball. It splits the defence in half. It's a great run. You get to the other side of Ashley Young. If Ashley Young wins the ball there, then it's a great tackle. I just don't think he wins the ball. I think he kicks the back of his foot, which does mean that there isn't
it's lift, isn't it?
Yeah, he kicks the back of his foot, and the lad, I just think it's a penalty. I do. I can understand why they feel hard done by in that position.
I just don't see how, on the angle that it's on, the angle that Young comes from, I don't see how the referee thought he got the ball first.
No, I don't.
The angle he has to come from, he does have to hit the man first.
I don't, and I think the other side of it is when he does the whole thing, you'd think that would be the signal to VAR to go,
should we check that?
Well, he didn't, did he? He didn't get the ball. Like, it shouldn't be a sign of, like, I'm in control of this situation. I think when he does that, it's like, it's a signal to everyone else, but I think it's almost a signal to VAR as well to go,
can you look at that for us?
Didn't really get the ball though, did he? So therefore, if he didn't get the ball and you think he did get the ball, then you're wrong. So I think we've got lucky. Don't get me wrong, I think we've earned our luck. We've earned our luck, but I understand why Forest fans would be fuming at that one. I mean, it's at that stage, it's 1-0, and the game could have gone either way. Let's be honest. If Forest get a goal there and Goodison's like, away we go again, then who knows? So we have got lucky, and we have to say that as well, because let's not sit here on the fence and go, well, you know, like whatever's happened with Forest putting the thing in, that's on them, and I think it's a poor statement because they've basically shot themselves in the foot by accusing the PGML of cheating effectively.
It's easier to dismiss conspiracy than it is to dismiss fault or a lack of proper enforcing of the rules, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think they've made a bit of a mare there, and I think today they've called for the audio like Liverpool did. I don't know what that'll do, whether they think they're all going to be chuckling, and whether they think the fella's sitting there singing songs about the Hatters or something. I don't know, or going through someone's backyard to get into the ground or something. I don't know, but fair play. Listen, fair play. Maybe that's what they should have said yesterday rather than putting that statement out, which was, I just think, silly. I think it distracts from what their intentions were. But that's on them. You made a great point before when we were doing the live, saying, you know, really hope Everton don't get dragged into this, as in like, if
we stay up and the narrative somehow becomes, oh, you just benefited from match fixing, when, you know, I don't think it was, and I don't think it'll ever be established that it was, but narrative spread fast. Yeah. And, you know, with Everton we've gone up against this season, everything we're still going up against, I just think these players deserve their credit if they stay up at the end of the season, given what we've been through, and it'd be an injustice to them if the narrative around them became, oh, you only stayed up because the officials wanted you to. Because Everton's the last club anyone should be saying is getting special treatment to stay up. Yeah,
it's all. Listen, that's for them to sort out. We've had games where we haven't had that, and listen, VAR. I don't blame VAR as such. The word VAR gets thrown around quite a lot. The referees are just not up to it. The referees, VAR gets used all the time, and no one wants to deal with the fact that the referees themselves are very, very poor in this country. The standard is awful. And again, like everything else, the setups and how we do things in this country, people just want to ignore it. People get demoted and they get then given a job somewhere else, whether in the Championship. Like, no one gets sacked. No one gets struck off down to like the whatever. It just seems to be one big boys club, and that's what it is. In my eyes, we've had to deal with it this season. Everyone's had an issue. Forest are, if they want to highlight it, I've got no problem with that, because I think
it's their right, isn't it?
We've mentioned this loads of times. Lots of decisions just go loads of decisions. Look at the one for us, Fulham, right? Robinson literally handballs it on the line, and nothing's ever said about it. It doesn't. No one even mentions it. You know, if you watched Match of the Day that night, no one even mentioned it. You know, there's been loads. The one at Anfield, second yellow, which should have been a sending off at 1-0.
Fulham on the first day as well.
There's been loads, but they don't get highlighted. And what Forest have done here is gone, listen, it's about time this gets highlighted. I just think they've gone too big, and it's made them look, you mentioned it, like tin foil, instead of going, this needs all addressing. You know, look at these three decisions. It's not the first time this happened to us. So, you know, what they've done, I understand, but they've done it in a silly way. And you know, listen, if you're going to come to Goodison and sing those kind of songs, I've got no sympathy for you as far as I'm concerned either. But listen, we that was their real. They had a few little things. They had a few little things in the second half. Give us a few little scares. Got to the byline a couple of times, pulled it back. We dealt with most of it. There was one that got put over the top. Tarkowski skimmed it on. I think it was Morgan Gibbs White put wide. Yeah. That was the big one, wasn't it? Really,
he could have done better with that, couldn't he? Especially with the player it was, and he did feel a little bit of a sigh of relief when Gibbs White scuffed his shot.
Yeah, that was the big opportunity. That was the one where you did really hold your breath and you were waiting for the goal to ripple, the net to ripple, and to see it go, wide was the big relief. And I think that was at 1-0, wasn't it, as well as the penalty shout. And luckily for us, we kept going, we kept pushing on. We'd made a couple of changes. Dwight McNeil, as we've mentioned earlier, coming more and more inside, and for the goal itself, gets picked up in the midfield, he gets the ball, Decore just gives him it back, and it felt like this for a couple of weeks, that we were trying to engineer this situation to get him in this position, to see the goal, to have it there, almost like a special teams kind of situation. You see like a play, like in basketball or American football, where you have the playbook, which is all to get, you do this, to get the ball to this player in this position to take the shot.
Like a soccer aids type thing or something.
No, but it's like, you see it all, get it so it ends up there.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like. And when he pulled his foot back, I was quite confident that it was ending up in the back of the net. And just to see the little touch on the post and then bounce onto the other side, it was just some feeling.
At the same time, no, I know it did feel very deliberate to get it to McNeil, and maybe we've had this for a couple of weeks. When was the last time we scored from what you could actually describe as a move?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I couldn't tell you.
No, I mean, not really. I mean, the last goal we scored of any note was Beto's against West Ham. The cross into the box and the header.
If you go, last goal we scored before the weekend was against Burnley, where the keeper just kicked it against Lewin. Before that,
was
I think
a penalty
there
at
was
Newcastle.
So yeah, it was actually a little bit of, there was a 1-2, Decore gets it out his feet quick, but it draws players towards him first, opens up that little bit of space for McNeil. And look, he hits it well, McNeil. It's low and it's hard, and he finds the right part of the goal. And he is a player that we've been looking for a lot more from this year. He's had a disappointing first half, more than half of the season, when you look at what he can be capable of, when you look at what he did last season. But I think, sometimes we forget that he had a poor first half of last season as well, and it was around this time of last year where he really came to life for us and started getting us these goals in important moments. And if he can do it again this year, he does a massive part once again in bringing us towards safety.
Yeah, I mean, I did say before this game that he needed a big moment. He hasn't had a particularly great game, and great season, and he just needed a moment. It doesn't have to be like a full game. It doesn't have to be an amazing game. I mean, this time last year, he was, you'll think of like Brighton and stuff, and he was helping to drag us through games. Really was. He was having big moments. And even though this wasn't like that, he needed something to get us going, and it was a great strike, and it just, Forest had just had their best spell. I think the as I said, the two moments that we've just been talking about, that was their best spell of creating attack momentum, as they call it now. So it was, and we were just getting to that coming into the last 10 minutes. I think it was 78 minutes he scored. Everyone's starting to get a little bit edgy, and normally we're used to those 1-0s where, and there's going to be loads of injury time, and it becomes more and more edgy. And we had that when we played them down there of, the last few moments they had a couple of opportunities and we sorted it out. And you just don't need that stress in your life. You really don't.
No, and you don't want to be relying on that, do you? Because, it is the old saying, a one-goal lead's a dangerous one, because it can turn around so quickly. And we've seen this team try and defend one-goal leads at points in this season, twice against Brighton. We've had that one-goal lead, and it's just took that little moment of luck or a lapse in concentration for us for that to change. And you are expecting that rally for the last 10, 15 minutes plus injury time of the game as well. And, you can be in a situation where you're potentially under the cosh for another 20 minutes when all you're trying to do is get through, your back's against the wall, and getting that second goal, that buffer, is just so important. And it's something we've probably not done enough this season, because we could be a few points better off if we had gone for it a little bit more. Yeah,
it was a great strike, and as I said, it just felt like they were getting us, he was queuing us up into getting in that position, and it's gone in, and he's had another one not long afterwards, nearly to finish the game. He drove forward with the ball. We drove forward a few times. We just kept on picking the wrong option. Jack Harrison was kept on getting one-on-one with the fullback and not really doing anything. There was one he did skip inside and pulled back, and it flashed across the box. Someone nearly made contact with it, but Dwight McNeil went on, had another shot, stung the palms of the keeper. He pushed it out, but it never led to anything. But let's have a look at McNeil's stats. So obviously 1 goal, pass accuracy of 71%, 2 key passes, 2 tackles, and Jules won 3 out of 5, so that's quite good. And I think his crossing accuracy was quite high as well. I think it might have been 3 out of 5. So he's had an all-round decent game, and obviously just the goal to cap it off. And as you can see there, just put it back on a minute, Ned. Just see from his heat map as well. Not really high up on the left-hand side. You can see him just tucking inside, almost as we said before, playing as almost as another number 8 as such, and allowing all that side for Michalenko to go into, but we didn't really exploit that as such.
If you look at his heat map though, at times he's almost operating in the positions you'd expect from like an inverted fullback.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of just below the halfway line and then coming inside from there and picking up those spaces, but with the benefit of having an actual fullback behind him who can at times push into that space. So, I mean, it's an interesting role for him because we know he's not the most dynamic of wingers, he's not the fastest, he's not the most comfortable going one-on-one. But if we can find a way to get, because he does have some technical ability, he can strike a ball, and you know, we've seen he had 2 key passes in the game. If we can find a way to get that out of him without, you know, forcing him to try and draw from his weaknesses, there's maybe something here, isn't there?
If he had any kind of right foot, he'd be a solid, like a genuinely good player. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a good player. But what I mean by that is, you're absolutely right. He's probably a better central player than he is a wide player, because he wants to get on the ball and he wants to drive forward. And even though he's pace-wise, he's limited, he's quick with the ball. But having no right foot makes it really difficult to play central, because the opposition will always know which way you're going to go into. And he does. It's something that, if he started to really work on his right foot, then maybe in 3 or 4 years' time...
It's too late in his career for
No, it's never too late to work on your weaknesses as a footballer. They train every single day. It's never too late. The more you get confidence in that foot and the more you use it. Don't forget, a footballer's got access to not only training all day, but the gym as well. There'll be exercises to don't forget that when the problem with your opposition, the foot you don't use or the hand you don't use, is it's more to do with like the muscles in it, and you know, the feeling you get between your good foot and your bad foot. Your bad foot sometimes just feels like it's almost numb at times, if that makes sense, compared to your right foot that you feel like you've got ultimate control in. There must be ways that he can make himself better. I'm not saying that can happen overnight, but having that, just being able to surprise people and go, you know, like Ryan Giggs worked on it his entire career. Everyone used to think he was massively left-footed. And he actually became quite a good centre midfielder because he worked every day on his right foot just to make it good enough that when people thought he was going to go on his left foot, he could go on his right foot.
Yeah, he could obviously improve, and I hope it's something he does improve with, but I think he's always going to be one-footed, and I think he's just something that we just need to accept. There's certain things with McNeil that are always going to be this way. He's never going to be fast either. Yeah, he could work on getting faster, but he's never going to be fast. So there's just certain things we need to accept. This is the way he is. We don't have the money to go and buy loads of replacements. So what can we do with this kid to get the most out of what he does have?
See, I do think he can work on his right foot. I do. Don't get me wrong, I don't think he can become faster, but I do think he can work on his right foot. And I think if he worked every single day on it and got in the gym and got something, I think he could improve. I genuinely do. I don't think we should give up on the players to get better. Players who get better season by season they're the players that want to do more and be more in football. So listen, he might be right now, but maybe it's the confidence, I don't know. But listen, he took the strike well, gave us that little cushion. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't. They had what did they add on 9 minutes, and then of course Beto, obviously horrible head injury. I mean, he jumped up, the clash of heads has obviously knocked him out, and then he's fallen, And it's the fall as well as the, all that way. But body is bigger as us. You could, the thud, players straight away. You can see the reaction of players straight away. Luckily, by the time he was taken off the pitch, he was conscious and he did put his hand up, and he has been taken out of hospital now, and he was even putting something on.
He had a laugh on
Instagram,
media,
yeah. So he's now the concussion protocol will come into place, and I imagine he did have concussion, which I imagine will definitely rule him out of these 2 games. Dominic Calvert-Lewin had gone down injured, got back up. The manager said afterwards that it was a knock, like a literally knocked knees with someone,
impact.
Which is good because it's not the hamstring, which probably means that he'll be available. Otherwise, we'd have Schmidt playing up front in the Merseyside derby, which is something no one can imagine being a good thing.
No, but he did do all right when he came off.
He did all right, yeah.
He did all right, but yeah, just glad Beto was okay, mainly because if you watch combat sports, one thing they always say is it's not always the punch or the knock or whatever it is that knocks you unconscious that does the damage. It's the whack when your head hits the floor when you fall backwards, and we caught the floor at a nasty angle, and we're carrying a big frame as well. So first and foremost, I'm just glad that he seems to be okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing that matters, is that he's okay. That added again a little bit more tension, even though it's not his fault. That added a little more tension because then people don't really know how long's left. But we got through it. Listen, we got through it and we got the 2-0, and ultimately it's been a decent weekend. 5 points clear. We now need 7 points as it stands to be, absolutely safe. 7 points from our remaining games would make us that would mean Luton would have to win every game, and obviously we play Luton as well. Burnley obviously are there as well, but 7 points would guarantee it. Now, obviously, that could be, who knows? That could mean it could be done and dusted on Saturday when we play Brentford. I mean, I very much doubt it, but it could be. But if Everton can get, even if Everton got a couple of points this week and Luton got beat, then it's
an advantage.
Then it's what, 2 points then, isn't it? And that would basically mean not being beaten by Luton would mean we were safe. So very much in our hands, very much in our control, and we've got to keep it that way. And obviously we've got a tough game Wednesday night, tough game Saturday because Brentford are flying, and obviously they destroyed Luton at the weekend. We've just got to keep just making sure we put in those performances. We do what we do well and don't do what we did at Chelsea, and hopefully we hopefully can have it all sorted. Yeah,
just keep improving, keep chipping away, and pick up points where we can, and win these important games. Luton's the big one when we go there, because not only is it head to head, but if they somehow beat us, that makes us their biggest target as well. And I don't know what the points difference would be by then, but you'd imagine it would be quite narrow, and it gives them real motivation heading into the late stages of the season. So, ideally pick up points in every game, but especially these big ones.
Yeah, listen, get through this week. If we can get through this week unbeaten, that would be huge for everyone. And it means, hopefully, would mean that we weren't looking over our shoulder. But the job's not done till it's done. It's as simple as that. No one should relax. No one should take the foot off. And we should, we need to keep going. So let's have a look at the match stats. As you can see there, 7 shots to Forest 8, 4 on target to Forest 3. Big chances, 1 for us, 2 for them. Obviously, that will be the Chris Wood and the Morgan Gibbs-White one. Possession-wise, 40% to their 60%. 3% from the sweet spot, and I always allow 5 either way, so we've done what we needed to do there. 37% is the sweet spot, so 3 points. Big games coming up, and what a week indeed. There you go. We'll be carrying this on over on Toffee TV Premier, where we are live right now. You might even be able to hear the Redmen next door crying it in. I don't know. So we'll be continuing over there. Don't forget, Toffee TV Premier do daily exclusives over there for the price of a cup of coffee, literally. And I've said before, if you're a guest, you can come in, be a guest, and I'll make you a cup of coffee, a nice cup of coffee.
So what have you really lost?
Exactly, you've lost nothing. So instead of getting that coffee from a Costa or a Starbucks or wherever, local independents, maybe, which is good. That's where you should be buying from. You could come in here as a Toffee TV Premier guest, and I'll make you a cup of coffee. I might even make you 2 cups of coffee. Cappuccino.
So at that point, you're
latte.
Up.
You're up. Hot chocolate. Ned loves the hot chocolates. Link is in the description. QR code. Honestly, Toffee TV Premier is what keeps this channel going. It's what keeps this channel going. So thank you very much if you are already a Toffee TV Premier. But if you're not, come and be one. There you go. We'll be continuing. See you later.